it was a bit of a media storm that happened after some criticisms that I had over Trump. Am I off on this? Like, what is the best way to handle like somebody that I voted for that is not living up to their promises? I'm criticizing them, and some responses are, "Well, yeah, you're a fucking idiot." And I was like, I don't know if that's the best way to build a coalition.
All right, so it looks like we're starting to see the comedians that decided to go all in on politics and endorse Trump and have him on their podcast now really coping over Trump not doing what he promised. Or in Joe Rogan's case, Trump actually doing what he promised with the deportations, which his fan base wants more of. But Rogan is like, man, this is insane. And of course, he acts all surprised by it.
We were told there would be there's two things that are insane. One is the targeting of migrant workers, not cartel members, not gang members, not drug dealers, just construction workers showing up in construction sites and raiding them, gardeners.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Or Palestinian students on college campuses.
So Rogan endorsed Trump and interviewed him for 3 hours, but he didn't do enough research or ask him enough questions to know that him and his fan base wanted mass deportations. I mean, this is an issue that most of Trump's base would say is exactly what they voted for. So it's hilarious for Rogan to act all surprised by this. And seeing these comedians cope over Trump is the funniest they've been in years. You know, watching Schulz cope over this is like watching a kid realize Santa isn't real, while also at the same time trying to act like he always knew that. I mean, he sounds so confused. Because he went off about how he voted for Trump to decrease government spending, stop wars, and release the Epstein files. But so far, he's basically just done the opposite of that. So after everyone made fun of Schulz for just believing everything Trump says, the next episode, he's sarcastically like, guys, apparently politicians lie. Who knew? I had no idea. You know, he's saying this like, no shit, I know politicians lie. But obviously he didn't, or he's just playing dumb because he says he believed everything Trump said. And Schulz still thinks Trump actually wanted to do that stuff, but I guess he thinks the deep state got to him or some shit like that.
I know this is crazy, but did you know that politicians lie?
Oh, wow.
That's something I just found out.
Wow.
Someone was like, Trump's a fucking liar. You didn't know he's a fucking liar? And I was like, oh, I thought they were all liars. I didn't realize that there were people that tell you the truth. Everything he campaigned on, I believe he wanted to do. And now he's doing the exact opposite thing of every single fucking thing. Like, they'll DM me and be like, you see what your boy's doing? You voted for this. I'm like, I voted for none of this. He's doing the exact opposite of everything I voted for.
Yeah.
I want him to stop the wars. He's funding them. I want him to shrink spending, reduce the budget. He's increasing it. It's like...
And almost every comment on these podcasts is negative, which of course Schulz acts like he doesn't understand why people are criticizing him. You know, he just keeps acting like people are saying he shouldn't be able to call someone out who he voted for. But I think the point most people are trying to make is Schulz should have known better, and he should take more accountability, which he refuses to. Instead, he comes up with all these excuses and just hopes his fans are dumb enough to fall for them. You know, because with these podcasters, you have to remember, they're not stupid, but they think you are. Like, Schulz is just banking on his fans being like, yeah, who could have known Trump wouldn't follow through on this stuff? At least he's calling him out now. But Schulz should have known better from the start. Instead, he obviously just got caught up in the grift. Now he's trying to backtrack by playing dumb and acting like he was just thrown into politics. But he's the one who decided to get heavily involved in politics, which he didn't need to do. I doubt many of his fans wanted him to. You know, he's supposed to be a comedian, not a political commentator. There's no reason he needs to interview a presidential candidate, and this just confirms that because Schulz already got played. But instead of him just admitting that, or admitting he's a useful idiot, or he shouldn't have gotten so caught up in politics, he tries to act like, well, what did you want me to do? You know, do you want me to endorse Kamala or grill Trump when he went on my podcast? But another option there is to just not endorse or interview either and just make fun of them like a comedian is supposed to do. You know, his job is to make fun of people, especially high-profile politicians. But instead it turned into him glazing them and endorsing them because the grift was too appealing to him. Obviously, the podcast was going to get a ton of views. And it was kind of a safe play at the time. You know, Theo Von and Lex Friedman just had on Trump, and he's scheduled to go on Rogan. So it wasn't that controversial. But now that Trump is getting a lot of backlash for the Epstein stuff and how he's handling things in the Middle East, Schulz, it's a safe time for him to start backpedaling. But thankfully, people are seeing through his bullshit. So now he's been spending the last few weeks just coping over it every podcast. It's wild to watch. They're just grasping at straws here, and Akash keeps having meltdowns over it. They're not handling it well. And it's gotten so pathetic. Now Schulz is begging the left to accept him because he keeps saying people on the left are the ones criticizing him, even though also pretty much his whole audience is, which I don't think everybody in his audience is on the left. But he keeps saying that the left should be welcoming him to their side because now he's turned on Trump. And he says they're all being selfish for criticizing him since their side could use him and his massive influence. So this just reeks of desperation. It's like, guys, stop being mean to me. I want to join your side.
I think they think we were supposed to dunk on Trump immediately, make him get up and walk off in 30 seconds, and now we're all happy. No. Well, good Democrat, if somebody wants to change their mind on Donald Trump, says, no, you're not allowed to. And instead of wondering what maybe made you vote for him, you just say, you're stupid, you're a bad person, we don't change anything.
Oh,
we're perfect.
Because I figured what they would want to do is maybe win the midterms.
Oh, no.
Or maybe even win the election.
But you don't want to win, you want to be right just on Twitter.
So just right now.
Yeah, on Twitter for 5 minutes.
The most selfish thing that they could possibly be.
Yeah.
Only them. Just get some clicks and views.
Of course. Because you don't actually have to care about what the state of America.
Right. It's not like we live in a democracy where you lost and you actually need people that are disillusioned to go on your side.
So you got to go to the party that just doesn't have primaries for candidates.
That's where you go. I get it.
And if you're upset by that, you love Trump and everything he did and every lie he tells.
But if you actually care about what's happening in the country, maybe you would want to talk to some different people, and maybe you would hope to build a coalition and move some votes back over to the Democrats if you think that they have a better idea for America. But obviously that's not what you want. But God forbid we shine a light on the people who...
You know what I'm getting a lot of? You talked to him. You platformed him as if he was at 0%. And then we talked to him and then he won the election. As if he had fucking no shot of winning.
Hold on.
People were like, this guy's a monster, he's not a human being. Then we humanize him. That's what he keeps saying.
Let's game theory this, Akash.
Yeah.
Okay, we are so powerful and influential by simply sitting down with him.
Yeah.
Right? We made him president.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So one would think that if we are disillusioned by some of the things that he is doing as president, and we're upset that same influence might be able to make someone else president. So shouldn't you be embracing this massive influence that you
come
say
to
we
our
have?
side.
Claim we have,
Or you just want to take no accountability for the fact that you ran a dead guy and a woman that couldn't speak. I wanted something different. I was hoping for some sort of change.
Oh, no, yeah. Then you should have voted for Kamala,
Okay, got it. Okay, well, listen, now you know.
Yeah.
I'm just a fucking idiot, obviously. You know what I mean? I didn't understand how this, information economy works.
Yeah, you don't understand democracy.
Yeah, damn, democracy's tough, dude.
And then Schulz also brought on these Democrat podcasters and this congressman to help him cope over this. That's how badly he's trying to save face. He basically wants these influential people on the left to tell their side that they should be more accepting of him. So it's just sad. And of course they're nice about it. They're kind of just like, yeah, we don't expect the average person to be that informed, to really know everything about Trump and everything he's said and done and what he's lying about. Which I agree with most people. They don't have the time to follow things that closely and be that informed. But unfortunately, Schulz put himself in a position where he's the one informing people on what's going on. Sadly, he's interviewing politicians and he's really invested in politics now. So he's not the average person who's working a 9 to 5 and has just an hour or two to figure out what's going on in the world. I mean, it's his job to pay attention to what's going on in the world and try to explain it to people. So he should be more prepared. That's the point everyone's trying to make. The fact that Schulz really believed that Trump was going to drain the swamp and release the Epstein files shows he has no idea what's going on.
What is the best way to handle somebody that I voted for that is not living up to their promises? I'm criticizing them. And some responses are, well, yeah, you're a fucking idiot. And I was like, I don't know if that's the best way to build a coalition. What do you think? What do you think about that, John?
No, that shit drives me nuts because I think, first of all, Trump lies a lot. He's always lied a lot. And it also assumes that every single person in America was supposed to be paying attention to every single word that Donald Trump has ever said.
Right.
And which they're not. But then aside from all that, like you said, if you want to persuade people to join your coalition, which is how you actually win elections, then when someone says, oh, I'm disappointed in the person I voted for, you say, well, welcome.
Are you delicate about it? Do you feel like you have to be even more critical? Are you ever concerned that you guys have so much influence that your critiques could sway voters away? How do you hold your own party accountable is basically what I'm asking.
I mean, about a year ago, after the debate between Biden and Trump, we sort of immediately after the debate said that it was fucking awful and that Biden should seriously think about whether he needs to stay in the race. And, you know, we weren't too popular for a while.
And then Schulz also cries about this to a congressman, and he's like, we should have the right to hold people in power accountable and criticize them, right? Which is ironic considering that's just what his fans are doing. You know, they're trying to hold him accountable like people tried to hold the mainstream media accountable. Influential podcasters should be held to the same standard. Like, they all admit they've replaced the mainstream media because the mainstream media lost its credibility. But at this point, I don't know if Schulz and Rogan are much better. I mean, I guess at least Schulz isn't scared to criticize someone he endorsed, but I've noticed these podcasters, what they do is they constantly talk about how bad the mainstream media is, but then when people try to hold them to the same standard they hold the mainstream media to, they're like, hey, I'm just trying my best, you know, I'm a comedian, this isn't my job to talk about this stuff. I mean, Rogan always resorts to being like, hey, it's just me here, just me and Jamie, you can't expect that much from me, and, you know, I'm an idiot, people shouldn't take me that seriously, even though he's arguably the most influential person on the planet. But they will do anything to try to avoid accountability, like we see here with Schulz. And he also acts like he's just thrown into this mess. He's like, we were just thrown into this political mess, but they chose to throw themselves into it. You know, him and his giggling goons, they keep trying to act like they had to have Trump on and they had to get this involved in politics. But they chose this, and this is why comedy sucks now. It's crazy, these podcasters, they used to complain about late night shows being too political and it ruining comedy. But now they're no different, except I will say there are a lot of comedians that see this and also hate it. Like Mark Norman and Joe List, they're complaining about it. Bobby Lee and Andrew Santino too. I made a whole Patreon video about that if you're interested. I've been talking a lot about this stuff over on Patreon. But they all think it's really weird. I'm sure Shane Gillis thinks the same thing. Like, he's the perfect example of a comedian knowing his lane. Because after he got canceled, it became like a culture war thing. And the right was trying to claim him as theirs. But he's like, I'm just here to goof around and make people laugh. I'm not trying to get involved in all this nonsense. That's not my job. And that's why he's one of the most successful comedians now. But comedians like Schulz and Theo Von and Joe Rogan, they're just lost in the sauce.
We live in this like weird time where any measure to hold them accountable comes with immediate criticism. Your experience as a politician, or I guess we experience it as, you know, for whatever people thrown in this, you know, political mess. But there has to be a version, I think, also where as Democrats, like, this is a democracy. You want votes. You don't have enough. You lost last time, right? You want to win this time? If you see people that seem to have swayed over to Trump that are now disillusioned with Trump, you have the opportunity to build a coalition with those people. And you don't build a coalition by just going, hey, fucking idiot, why would you, stupid fucking, that's not how you build. I'm not some fucking Democrat cult member, Republican cult member. Like, we're supposed to be free Americans that can make up decisions on our own, call balls and strikes, as you say, and then hold the people in power accountable. When people fail us and fail us on the promises they make, we should criticize them. Like, what is the alternative? We just vote and then agree with every single thing that person does. You know, a lot of, staunch liberals who pretended that the person they voted for wasn't dead for 4 years. Like, they pretended Biden wasn't senile for 4 years. And we're getting lectured for criticizing the person that I voted for. Like, I think
they're pretending they had a really viable, awesome candidate that we all should have voted for, and not just acknowledging.
Lecturing you. I mean, I don't get it, because they think we
platformed him. We talked to him.
Not even that. It's just they're like, you should have known better. This guy's a career con man. He just always lies. You should have known. And it's like,
so dumb. That's why the Democrats lost. It'd be like, look,
And Schulz also addressed not asking Trump about Epstein. He says he didn't ask him because he thought he'd just give a generic or predictable response. So I guess he thought there's no point in asking him, which just sounds so ridiculous. And is clearly a cope. You know, either Schulz didn't want to upset Trump or Trump told them not to talk about it. Like, I don't know how him and Rogan could be this obsessed with Epstein and then have on a friend of his and someone who could potentially release the files and not ask them a single question about it. You know, that's really strange. And Schulz is just like, well, what'd you think was going to happen? He'd just admit to diddling kids. Like, if he's not going to admit it, then there's no point in asking about it, which just makes no sense. I mean, people wanted to hear him talk about it because they wanted to know if he would release the list and hold the people on it accountable. And also, it's a way to see if he sounds suspicious or not when he's talking about it. You know, who knows what he would have said in response to it. Like, previously, he had said he would release the files, but there could be some phony stuff in there, so he'll have to take a look at it first. And if Schulz asked him about this and that was his response, you would think as a comedian, he'd be like, you know, it kind of sounds like you want to see if your name's in there first. then that would have aged really well for Schulz. But instead, he thought there's no point, which is just total cope, because also he had asked a previous guest about it who's been on Epstein's plane, RFK Jr. He was on there and Schulz asked him about it, and his response was wild. So I don't believe Schulz for a second here, because also if he had asked Trump about it, the clip would have went viral for sure. Even if Trump just said, yeah, I'll release the list, it still would have gotten a lot of attention and just been another example of Trump lying about it. So I think Schulz is completely full of shit here.
I think it's like there was when we had Trump on, people were like, why didn't you ask him about Epstein? I was like, so he could give the same answer that he's given 100 times about being with Epstein. Like, do you think that if we asked him about Epstein, that he'd be like, yeah, I used to kids with him? Like, you think he's just going to open up because he's hanging out with this? It's going to be the same answer every single time. Right? So, yeah.
A little
okay, but give the context, obviously, to the Epstein thing, because you basically got out ahead of the...
So first of all, I'm in New York for most of my life.
Yeah.
So, you run into everybody in New York. I mean, I knew Harvey Weinstein. I knew Roger Ailes. I knew O.J. Simpson came to my house. Bill Cosby came to my house.
You also knew good people.
Yeah, I did know a lot of them, but you don't know these people are swamp creatures until all this stuff comes out.
Yeah. So these podcasts went from comedians just goofing around with their friends to now them coping over political endorsements. It's wild. And with Rogan, he at least used to grill the people on his show. He'd get into debates, he'd have heated arguments. And at one point, it seemed like he actually was just an independent podcaster that was trying to get the answers to things. But now he's clearly sold out, and every politician or billionaire he has on is just a softball interview, and he glazes them the whole time. And even the other day, when he was talking about Kash Patel just lying to his face on his podcast, he was like, what am I supposed to do, push back? It's like, yeah, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. And of course, he always tries to avoid Trump's involvement with Epstein. Whenever somebody brings it up on his podcast, he gets really uncomfortable about it and tries to change the subject, which I've talked a lot about over on Patreon. But he hasn't talked about the latest fallout yet after the whole DOJ investigation into it and Trump calling it a hoax and saying you're a bad person if you keep talking about it and you're part of the fake news. Trump basically called Rogan and most of his followers idiots. So I'm looking forward to Rogan's response, but odds are he'll probably just cuck out because he's in too deep now. He doesn't want to ruin his relationship with the administration. I mean, he has meetings with Trump, he gets calls from him, and he was at his inauguration with Theo Vaughn, so they're just part of the establishment at this point. And Rogan has to walk a fine line looking into Epstein and the cover-up because he has to act like he's still just trying to get answers, but if he looks too much into it, it goes back to Trump, so I don't know how he'll play this. But one thing we know is he doesn't care enough to push back when somebody's lying to his face on his podcast about it.
Nothing you're looking for is on those tapes. Like, what? Why'd they say there was thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible shit? Why'd they say that?
Right.
Didn't Pam Bondi say that?
What, are you talking about Epstein or Diddy?
Yeah, Epstein.
Yeah, she said it literally, I think, a week before you had the FBI director sitting here telling you there was nothing, right?
She said something about that there was like thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible crimes.
There is. And didn't the FBI dude say that there was nothing?
Kash Patel said there's nothing you're looking for. Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, what am I going to do? I'm going to push back.
Right. No, of course. I
obviously, he's saying what he has to say.
Right.
Mystery surrounds the Jeffrey Epstein files after Bondi claims tens of thousands of videos. Tens of thousands. Jesus Christ.
I'll tell you what.
Oh, my God. Was reviewing tens of thousands of videos, the wealthy financier with children or child. The comment made to reporters at the White House days after a similar remark to a stranger with a hidden camera raised the stakes for President Donald Trump's administration to prove it has in its possession previously unseen compelling documents. Or just bomb Iran, and everybody forgets
Just bomb Iran, yeah.
Everybody forgets about it.
And how the Rogan sphere is handling this Epstein debacle has been really interesting because they could really put a lot of pressure on Trump and his administration. They could put them on the spot, which they're kind of acting like they're trying to do, but also at the same time, they're trying to do whatever they can to blame it on anyone but Trump. Like Rogan posted this stupid meme about it where it's Trump fighting the deep state or the swamp. And then he gets back to his corner. He's like, man, the swamp has hands. So Rogan is basically just an NPC at this point. Like, how could you not realize Trump doesn't want to release the list because he's on it? Every time he talks about it, it seems like he makes it more obvious. And Trump, he is the deep state. He's part of the swamp, which of course Rogan can't admit because that means he's part of it. And then also Tim Dillon, he's going with this talking point as well. So I think he probably got the call, which is really disappointing because for a while it seemed like he was just calling it like he sees it and he didn't have any allegiance to anyone anymore. I mean, he even outed Peter Thiel, who's Rogan's handler. Tim said that he tried to have a meeting with him and pay him off essentially so he'd start promoting his agenda. So I was like, damn, he does not give a fuck anymore. But after this, it sounds like he got the call because on his podcast, he did this bit about how everyone in politics is a pedophile and you might as well vote for whatever one you agree with the most, which it sounds like at first he's saying Trump is obviously on the list, but so is everyone else. And then he starts talking about how Trump is scared for his life. That's why we aren't getting a list. And then he says Trump, he doesn't have authority over it. And he knows Trump isn't into young girls and sex isn't his thing. He says sex isn't Trump's thing, which is completely insane. And he said even his biggest haters would tell you that. But I think it's more like the opposite. You know, I think even his biggest supporters would say Trump's a horn dog. Like, that's not even a question. You know, this is the grab by the pussy guy. And every time he was on Howard Stern, he'd talk about all this crazy shit he does. You know, how he walks around women's changing rooms during beauty pageants and sees young girls naked. And also Robin called him a sexual predator one time. And Donald's like, yeah, that's true. Like, even if he's not on Epstein's list, the guy's a horn dog. There's no debate about that. So him trying to tell his fans otherwise is so bizarre. So he either just doesn't know what Trump is like at all, which is hard to believe, or he got the call because we know Trump and his team are reaching out to influencers trying to get them to take it easy with this.
I'm giving advice to people now that live in this country. Choose the pedophile you agree with. Choose the pedophile whose values are yours. Who wants better schools? Probably all of them. What has the viewpoint that you align with? Who is the pedophile who's going to make sure your children have a shot at the American dream? You cannot ask that they don't f kids. You cannot ask that. It's a bridge too far. Stop being greedy. I think Trump knows they'll kill him. I think Trump knows that they'll kill him. I think he does. Truly, I believe he knows that. I believe he knows that the people that killed all of those people would find a way to kill him if this came out. I believe that he knows that. I believe he believes that some faction of those people tried to kill him already. Don't quite know who, but I believe that is what he believes. I don't know that. I don't have any information on that. You know, like I can't tell you, like, it's not like a guy, like I call, like someone told me that. I don't know what else evidence-wise you would need. And the president of the United States, he's the most powerful man in the world. No, he's not. No, he is not. No, he ain't. And if the last 6 months haven't showed you that, I don't know what will. He's not. It feels nice to say our president is the most powerful person in the world. It feels good. He's the most powerful person in the world. But really, the reality of the situation is he's not. He's not. And he can't wave a wand. And I'm not exempting Trump from blame. I don't think he's on I don't think young chicks are his thing. And even his enemies tell you that. They're just not his thing, you know? I don't know what else he's f***ed around with, but it's not young chicks. I don't think it's sex. I think whatever it is, he's getting pressure from a lot of people and he's succumbing to it. You know? He's not a brave, he's not a revolutionary. What? He owned casinos. Guys.
So I guess that's the narrative Trump wants him to push. You know, Rogan's meme kind of said the same thing, like Trump's not really in charge and the deep state is pushing back and he's scared and all that bullshit. But I'm still waiting to see what Rogan has to say about it on his podcast. If he says anything about it, I mean, he better, or that'll be really suspicious. But when he does, I'll definitely cover it. So make sure you subscribe and then check out my Patreon. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear more about this stuff, like Tim Dillon exposing Rogan's handler, and how Elon Musk's AI keeps roasting Joe Rogan every time he's on his podcast, and how Joe keeps simping for him, and how comedians are getting annoyed with all the politics and comedy. And also Theo Von keeps getting more political, and it's just a disaster, which I talk about over there. So there's a ton of stuff, over 140 exclusive videos, most of them are over 20 minutes. And I'm about to talk about Sam Hyde's Crash Out on Harlan Williams' podcast. So definitely go subscribe if you enjoy this channel, want to stay up to date with everything. There'll be a link in the description.
Do you think that all the gold is in Fort Knox?
Do I think all the gold is in Fort Knox?
Yes.
Are you a fucking conspiracy theorist?
Yes. Yes.
What are you doing?
Fucking AI with a penchant for chaos. And I'm stuck talking to you, weirdo. Now, what's next? Or